Sri Kumaraswamy College, Ausa, District Latur, State Maharashtra, India, has the privilege to welcome all the honorable dignitaries and participants here at the virtual platform for the International E-Conference. The topic of today's International E-Conference is technology, teaching on purpose. The college, Sri Kumaraswamy College, Ausa, is affiliated to Swami Ramananda Tirth Marathwada University, Nanded. The college undertakes number of innovative activities for the enrichment of knowledge and enhancement of skills of students, researchers, teachers, intellectuals, academicians, and knowledge seekers. All these activities are going on with grand success, and behind it, there are hard efforts of the chief organizer, Honorable Principal Dr. M. Betkar sir. We, the organizing committee, also have the strong moral support of our institution in running all these activities. Sir, I welcome you as the chairperson for the today's International E-Conference on behalf of the organizing committee of Sri Kumaraswamy College, Ausa. Today, I feel immense pleasure to welcome Honorable Dignitary Luz Johnston ma'am from San Francisco, who is going to enlighten us on the topic teaching on purpose. Before the actual keynote speech of the keynote speaker, in short, I would like to give introduction of today's honorable dignitary and keynote speaker. Dr. Luz Casquejo Johnston has over 2 decades of experience in the field of education. Over that time, as a classroom teacher, principal, and professor, Dr. Luz has worked with hundreds of parents to create families that learn and grow together. She is currently consulting with schools, parent groups, and individual families to share her warmth and wealth of knowledge. And today also, we all participants and delegates have the opportunity to be enriched by the keynote speech of the keynote speaker. So after this brief introduction, I would like to invite today's speaker, Honorable Luz Johnston ma'am, for her keynote speech and presentation. Please, ma'am, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm coming to you all the way across the globe in California. And I'm so excited to be sharing with you in India and across the globe this really important message, because we are in a time of global growth where we are becoming more together. And I'm so glad to be sharing what I have to what I've learned and experienced through my over 2 decades of work in schools and in universities. So this also comes to you. I want you to understand my context as well. My work has been mostly in the Montessori education arena, and that has a special place in India because, as you know, or maybe don't know, Dr. Montessori spent most of World War II in India developing what she understood to be the cosmic curriculum, which comes to us and is also an understanding of what she came in contact with in her work in India through her work with children who were helping her, the children were helping her to understand Dharma and purpose. And so she brought that back to the Montessori community. And so we always are talking about purpose. What is the purpose of teaching? What is the purpose of our life on the earth? And what are we hoping that children take with us, take with them? So the Montessori method is informed by the act of learning what our purpose is of teaching, and also helping children understand what their greater purpose is as they are living in this world. So today we're going to do some exercises. So I welcome you to join in with me if you would like. This is a time for you to come in contact with what the purpose of teaching is. I'm coming to you from a US context, and if you know anything about the US, we're really about data and understanding performance and achievement. But I push against that. And I say, in contrast to that, that the purpose of teaching is to help children understand what their purpose is. When they understand what their purpose on this earth is, all of the achievement goes away. Because in this thirsty pursuit of their purpose, we will not need to teach them because they will be voraciously taking in knowledge. So let's take this journey together. So oftentimes when we're thinking about teaching, we are thinking about the curriculum, we're thinking about the children, but I encourage you to think about the destination. What do we want for our young people? What do we want for the people who come in contact with us to be? So as a teacher, my understanding of my destination and my goal was not the federal guidelines of the United States of America, not the California guidelines for achievement, but my understanding of the destination for my students and for me was to find that purpose. So children who understand their purpose are deeply rooted in themselves. So I wanted children who understood themselves first. Number two, I wanted to help children to be independent, because if they were thinking about their own purpose, their interests were going to be very widespread. And as a teacher, there's no way for me to be a master of all of the things that children want to pursue. So my job is then to be a guide. And as a guide, I have to understand how to support children as they're growing their knowledge. So what is the destination when you are teaching? I want you to think about that now. What do you want for your young people after they spend some time with you? Is it an independent thinker? Is it someone who is able to innovate? And in order to innovate, we need creativity. And in order to be creative, we need to feel that we are strong, independent, and that we have the intellectual capacity to investigate the things that we're very much interested in. So take a moment right now to think about, what is the destination? What do you want for the young people or the people that you are supporting in education? So after that, now that we understand the destination, we know what we want for our young people after they have after they have been with us in the classroom, whatever that classroom may look like, we have to understand who we need to be. So much of education is focused on the how. How am I going to teach these young people? What is the curriculum? How am I going to use the curriculum? Am I going to use social media? How am I going to use, currently, the big question, of course, all around the globe is, how am I going to use artificial intelligence, AI? But that's not the question. The thing that's going to help us to move through all of this rapidly changing our rapidly changing technology and our rapidly combining our global economy and our global consciousness is to understand who we need to be in order to support our young people towards their destination of independence, creative thinking, and innovation. So who do you need to be? Who do you need to be in order to be the teacher you want to be? So if I want independent learners, that actually means I'm not controlling the young people in my classroom. A very different viewpoint, I think, of some education systems. I know in the US, as a Montessori teacher, it was not what other children were experiencing in other types of traditional schooling systems. But in order to foster independent learning, we have to let go of a little bit of control, right? We have to allow investigation. The only way to do that is to be the kind of person that trusts the process. So who does that mean? Who do I need to be? Becomes I need to be somebody who lets go of a little bit of control, who trusts that young people want to reach their goals, and also prepares the environment so that they can do those things. Is my classroom set up so that children can explore? Or am I giving all of the curriculum to them? Stand and deliver education is no longer the education that is going to be the most efficient. Discovery, inquiry, investigation are the ways that we're going to continue to innovate, and we're going to continue to be the leaders in education. So the discovering the who you need to be is about what do I need to do for myself so that I am supporting independent thinking. And some of that has to do with letting go of control. And so, one of the things that I experienced as an administrator, I was an administrator for 8 years in a public charter school that had 5 different programs. We served children 4 years old all the way up to the conclusion of their public school education at 18. So, we're talking young preschoolers all the way up through high school. And when you're looking at that large kind of scale of young people, what we need to understand is how do we be the people who can let go a little bit of the control? And one of the things that I was always, what I heard in the classroom as a teacher, when parents would ask me all the time, how do I know how to be a good parent? And when I was a principal, teachers would ask me, how do I know how to be a good teacher? And what often they were thinking of was, what are the skills? For teachers, they wanted to know, how am I going to teach math? How am I going to teach language arts? How am I going to teach science? And how am I going to teach social studies and history? And what I would say is the mechanics and the curriculum are always there. What you need to focus on is you. What you need to focus on is, how do I become more confident in myself? So here's the thing. When people often say, I don't know how to do this because I've never done this before, what I have to say to you is you actually do know how to be a leader in a classroom. For parents, you know how to be a good parent because you have had examples of good and bad, things you want to continue in your own parenting or teaching journey. So we'll talk specifically about teaching. You have experienced teachers who have inspired you to innovate. You're here because you're in the field of education. So people have encouraged you. You've also experienced in your education people who have done things that were not encouraging, that discouraged you, that said, I don't think that you can do it. So right now, what I want you to think of is, who is the encourager? So we're going to go through a little bit of a process right now. When we're thinking about how do we support young people to innovate, change, and learn, we have to think about how do we encourage them. So, right now, what I want you to do is to think about, because this is the big question again, who do I need to become in order to support young people to innovate, create, and grow? So, who is the encourager? Who has encouraged you in the past? So, right now, really, you can close your eyes. Many of you are off camera. Most of you are off camera, so you can close your eyes. You can have a soft gaze. Think about who has encouraged you in the past. What did they say? What did they do? So just take a moment in time. This is a little bit different of a keynote. I'm not going to continue to talk at you. I'm going to ask you to engage. So, who has encouraged you in your life? Some of us have one constant encourager. We call them the cheerleader. You know they're always there for you. You can call them day or night, in the middle of the night, when everyone is sleeping. They will always be there. And that is wonderful. Some of us have many encouragers that we have experienced throughout our childhood, our adolescence, our young adulthood, and now. So we might have several instead of just one. And some of us cannot recall one or several, but we're here, so we have experienced encouraging moments. So right now, I invite you to think about when you have been encouraged. When have you felt completely and wholly supported? What does that feel like to be completely and wholly supported? What does it feel like when someone believes in you? What does it feel like to have somebody who actually will tell you the hard truth? What does it feel like to have somebody who will allow you to make your own mistakes? And what does it feel like to have somebody who will be there in the good times to celebrate your success, and also in the times when you need support because you've tried something and it didn't work out the way you wanted? This is the key. How did it feel? My offering to you and my own feeling, when I think about my encourager, I think about Miss T and Miss Ingrid, my teachers in preschool. I ultimately felt that they saw me and that they really accepted all of who I am. I was a rambunctious preschool child. I ran around. I wanted to learn everything all at once. And they guided me to how to be in the classroom with my high energy. And because of that, I was able to learn to read on my own. I was able to learn how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide before the age of 6 because they believed in me. And think of the things that you can do if you support and encourage your young people. Yes, when we are supported by an encourager, we know that we are seen. We know that we are respected. We know that our encouragers will tell us if it's a good or bad idea, and they will let us try it on our own. Think about that. That's where innovation comes. That's where creativity comes. Again, we are in a rapidly changing global economy. We're in a rapidly changing technological age, and innovation and creativity are key. And so we have to really think about, what do we need to do to encourage this kind of thinking? And it's not hierarchical, where we stand and we deliver the education. We have to provide the environment where children can thrive and learn. And that means we have to really be encouraging. So I offer that to you. In order to be somebody that supports young people to be creative and to innovate, we must be the encourager. And we have to come in contact with the encouragers that have been there for us in the past. Because what we're doing is not maybe what we're seeing in every classroom. When we encourage and we support children to innovate, change, investigate, inquire, then we're doing something that might be different. And so we have to encourage ourselves even when those in our system are not supporting us. So the encourager. So we talked about what is the destination, and we talked about in the last two parts of my keynote about who do we need to be. So again, everybody is always asking, how do I know how to be a good teacher? We need to think about who we need to be and discover our own inner toolkit. And I talk about that because we know what works because we've experienced in our education system what works from our past. So now that you know who you need to be, you can make powerful choices that align with that powerful who. Again, we're in this global time. Everybody has access to the internet. Everybody has access to TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. And we have all of these influencers who tell us what the new next thing is. And rather than continue to search for someone outside of ourselves to give the answer, when we know what our destination is for the young people in our classrooms and we know who we need to be, we can start to make powerful choices on what we choose to use in our educational settings, in our learning environments. So there's a couple of things. Some of this comes to us from positive psychology. Some of this comes from, so I'll talk about each one of these in just a little bit of depth. So creating safety. Safety is created when children can predict what will happen. This happens through consistency. And consistency comes from being grounded in ourselves. If you are reacting and focused and also calm. So creating safety is number one. This comes to us from the work of Dr. Maslow, who created the Maslow's hierarchy of need. And the first level of needs is physical needs, food, clothing, shelter. And then the second layer is belonging and safety. So in our classrooms, how do we create safe environments? And I'm talking about physical safety, of course. And then I'm talking about psychological safety. So how do we create environments where children understand our high expectations and that we are going to consistently reinforce those high expectations in a loving way? I've seen a lot of classrooms in my over 20 years of high expectations, but really low warmth, where children they have high expectations, they're always trying to meet those expectations, but they don't feel the warmth of the adults in their classroom. And we know that when we combine those things, high expectation and warmth or support, children feel safe, and then they can learn more rapidly and more efficiently. And that's what we want, right, in education. The second thing that we need to do is to co-regulate. So self-regulation is the idea that we are having emotions in response to the things that young people do in our learning environments, but we're regulating ourselves so that we can always be that encouraging person that we talked about just a little bit ago. Co-regulation is the idea and the understanding that comes to us from neuroscience and the knowledge about mirror neurons. So mirror neurons are those neurons that that are in every human. So if I say touch your cheek, you'll touch your cheek. If I say touch your forehead, we'll just do this with me. Touch your forehead. I say touch your nose. Now I say touch your cheek. So many of you would have experienced that you actually touched your forehead, and that's because of mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are our most primal instinct. They're the instinct that we had when we were looking into the face of our primary caregivers. They are the things that help us to belong. So if our mother smiles at us, we smile back. There's a loving connection, and we feel that we are regulated. So co-regulation works on the back of that idea, the understanding of mirror neurons. So what that means is, if I am regulated and I am calm in the classroom, then the children in my classroom will be calm as well. It's the understanding that the energy that I bring to the classroom, if it's positive, if it's upbeat, if it's joyful, that will be spread in my community as well. So co-regulation. And then, of course, self-care is not selfish, something that's really big in the United States. And as people in the teaching professions, often we don't put ourselves at the top of our priority list. We're maybe second, so a lot of things happening. The first thing I do is to regulate myself. So I might just simply put my hands here in the middle of my chest, and I might just breathe and close my eyes so that I can be ready to respond rather than to react. Because reacting comes from that fight or flight, or that amygdala part of our brain where we can fight, flight, or freeze. And then thinking comes to us in our brains when we're regulated and calm. So actually, I have like 3 minutes. I'm going to show this to you very quickly. So this is called the brain in the palm of your hand. And this is going to help you to understand a little bit about co-regulation. So if you put your hand up, whatever hand you decide, there are some simple parts of the brain that we can talk about. In the middle of your brain is the amygdala, and that is responsible for fight, flight, freeze. Okay, and so when this part of the brain is firing, those are the only choices: fight, flight, freeze. That's it. We also know of fawn, which is just to play dead. If you close your fist in this model of the brain, this part here is the cerebral cortex, where all of your memories, including all of the things that worked in the past and didn't work, are. And here, if you touch your fingertips, this is the prefrontal cortex. This is where executive functioning happens. And when this part of the brain is firing, we can think back in the past and retrieve memories, or put together and repeat what we've done in the past that have worked, or we can put together what we know from our vast experience of knowledge to plan something different or innovate and change. So we know what this feels like. When you are in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, your heart is racing, your breathing is rapid, and we also know what it feels like to be in this moment when the prefrontal cortex is firing and we're calm and cool. So I think about this as activated or feeling brain. We're just reacting into thinking brain. And so for us as educators, it's important that we are not here in our reactive brain, and here in our responsive brain. Reactive, responsive. And when we're in our responsive brain, we can also respond effectively to the young people in our classroom, and we can encourage them to be effective as well. So that is my talk today. What have we talked about? We've talked about understanding the destination. What do you want for the young people in your classroom? Independent thinkers, young people who can innovate, who can inquire, and who can investigate this new world that we're in, because we need that in this global economy where technology is rapidly changing. So we know the destination. And now we talked about who do we need to be. We need to be somebody who lets a little bit of control out and somebody who encourages. And then we talked about how do we get there. The how comes from creating safety, physical and psychological safety, by regulating ourselves and by making sure that we have the bandwidth to serve the young people in our learning environments. So stay in touch with me. I am so excited and happy to have shared this wonderful 30 minutes with you, and I hope that's been helpful to you. Thank you so much, Dr. Beckar. I'm so excited to be here presenting in India. Yes. Oh, yes. Do you want me to share my presentation or okay. Mhm.
जी जी, सभी को नमस्ते। नमस्ते मैडम। मैडम, मेरा सवाल है कि व्यक्ति केवल नौकरी के लिए ही क्यों पढ़ता है? ऐसा क्यों?
Mhm. Oh, okay. So, I think a lot of education systems focus on the big question, what will you be when you grow up? We are again in a global economy where technology is rapidly changing. And so when we think about the jobs that exist now, maybe for our young people, those are not the jobs that they're going to be applying for when they leave school. So rather than prepare for one job, what we want to do is prepare them to think critically and to engage with new knowledge. So the question about what do you want to do or what is the job you would like is not the right question at all. It is, what are you interested in, and what is your life's question of inquiry? For example, if I am a young person and I'm very concerned about plastics in the ocean, my question of purpose and inquiry could be, How do I get people to care about plastics in the ocean? There's a number of ways I can answer that question of inquiry. I could be a researcher. I could be a journalist. I could be an artist who creates art, like a photographer who takes pictures of plastics in the oceans that evoke an emotional response. I could be somebody who is thinking about a science that doesn't even exist. So for us, thinking about what they care about leads us to understand how they can answer that question of inquiry. So it's not really about the yes. Yes. Thank you. I really appreciate being able to share this, and especially in India, because again, Montessori is dear to my heart. And the work that she did in India was so pivotal to her understanding and her philosophy. Okay, thank you. Bye.
थैंक यू सर। सर फीडबैक लिंक सर भेज दीजिएगा सर। 8 बजे भी है। हाँ सर 8 बजे भी है।